You know that famous image of Queen Elizabeth I, right? The Virgin Queen. She looks so powerful, so pristine, covered in jewels and pearls. She's the picture of strength. But what if I told you that underneath all that glamour was a story of fear, obsession, and let's just say, a very different idea of what it means to be clean? Now, this quote, and it's not totally confirmed she said it, but it perfectly sums up the Tudor mindset. For us, hearing once a month is pretty shocking. It completely shatters that pristine royal image. Because in her world, a bath wasn't just a quick daily shower. Oh no, it was a major, risky event. So what's the deal here? Was she just, well, dirty by our standards because that's how it was back then? Or was there something else going on? Was every single strange hygiene choice, from her poison makeup to her intense perfume, actually a calculated move, a performance designed to make her look untouchable? Okay, to get our heads around any of this, you have to understand something called miasma theory. Back then, people genuinely believed that diseases like the plague were caused by bad air, these invisible poisons just floating around. So opening up your pores with hot water, that was like throwing open the doors and inviting death right into your body. A bath wasn't healthy. It was dangerous. First up, let's talk about the Queen's pretty serious addiction, sugar. You have to remember, sugar in the 16th century was insanely expensive and rare. It was like having a supercard today. So for Elizabeth, having access to sugar wasn't just for a sweet treat. It was a way to show off England's wealth and power. And boy, did she show it off. And here is where it gets absolutely wild. You'd think she'd be trying to protect her teeth, right? Nope. Her special toothpaste, her Tudor toothpaste, was made from, you guessed it, sugar and some herbs. The very thing that was destroying her teeth was what she was using to try and clean them. It's just a perfect recipe for disaster. As you could imagine, the results were, not pretty. Her teeth turned black and started to rot away. Apparently, she was terrified of the pain of having them pulled. But here's the craziest part. Her black teeth became a fashion trend. Courtiers actually started blackening their own teeth on purpose, because it made them look rich enough to afford sugar. Unbelievable. This whole thing brings us right back to that fear of water. Look, for Elizabeth, not taking a bath wasn't about being lazy. It was drilled into her by the medical beliefs of the day. A big hot bath was this whole elaborate ceremony that was thought to leave you totally vulnerable to disease. So if you're not washing, what do? Well, they had a system, sort of like a dry clean for the body. The idea was that your linen undergarment, called a shift, would absorb all the sweat and grime. So you didn't need to wash your skin, you just needed to change your shift, sometimes multiple times a day, and maybe dab on a little rosewater to freshen up. Alright, now for her most famous feature, that ghostly white face. This was so much more than makeup. It was her armor. Having super pale skin was a sign that you were wealthy, that you didn't work in the fields. Elizabeth took that to the extreme, creating a literal mask that made her look ageless, almost godlike, hiding any flaw or sign of humanity. But achieving that perfect look came at a terrible price. The makeup she used was called Venetian ceruse, and it was basically a paste made of white lead and vinegar. Lead. So while it gave her that smooth, flawless look from a distance, it was literally eating away at her skin underneath, causing scars and slowly but surely poisoning her. Over the years, she very likely suffered from all the classic signs of lead poisoning. We're talking mood swings, memory loss, maybe even hair loss. Think about that. She was systematically destroying her own health, all to keep up this powerful illusion of being an immortal, perfect ruler. And just to show you how dedicated she was to the illusion, in her later years, as the damage from the makeup got worse, she reportedly banned all mirrors from her private rooms. She couldn't even stand to see the reality of what was happening to her own face. Okay, so no real washing. What about the smell? You're probably wondering. Well, Elizabeth waged an alluty war on bad odors. She surrounded herself in what was basically a fortress of perfume. Scent wasn't just to smell nice. It was a barrier, creating this artificial bubble of freshness that separated her from the real, smelly world outside. And trust me, she had a whole arsenal. She had perfumed gloves, little balls of herbs and spices called palmenders that she carried around, scented handkerchiefs. Everything was designed to project this aura of perfect, artificial freshness, especially since her hair was almost never washed. So we've talked about her personal hygiene, but what about her home? You imagine these grand, pristine palaces, right? All gold and velvet. Well, the reality was a lot grislier. Behind the scenes, the royal court had a massive sanitation problem. That's right. How many flushing toilets or modern sewer systems were in an Elizabethan palace? The answer is zero. A big, fat zero. All the waste from hundreds and hundreds of courtiers had to be collected and physically carried out by hand. So yeah, the palaces looked amazing, but they probably smelled awful. This whole situation created one of the weirdest and most powerful jobs in English history, the groom of the stool. This was the highly trusted nobleman whose job it was to take care of the Queen's personal toilet. And because he had such private access to the monarch, he became one of her most powerful advisors. It's just a bizarre world where your influence was directly tied to managing royal waste. So when you boil it all down, it comes to this. For us today, hygiene is about health and being clean. For Queen Elizabeth I, hygiene was all about power. Her goal was never really to be clean in the way we think of it. The goal was to be seen as perfect, flawless, and completely untouchable. At the end of the day, every one of these strange habits was just another part of the show. The baths she skipped, the poison she put on her face, the clouds of perfume, they were all props. They were tools she used to build the legend of a queen who was something more than human. Her image had to be spotless, even if she wasn't. And that leaves you with a pretty big thought, doesn't it? Queen Elizabeth I built her entire reign on this carefully constructed illusion of perfection. And she did it, even if it meant sacrificing her own health. It really makes you wonder, to hold on to power, or even just to get by in the world, what illusions are we still accepting or creating for ourselves today?